Hi, we're not on the range today, we're in the field. And once again, we're talking about shotguns. Why? Because a viewer sent me a question. Now, many viewers send me questions, but this is one I can actually answer. Now, the premise is, on previous occasions, we've demonstrated the use of shotguns for personal protection, anti-personnel, home defense purposes, and we've demonstrated shooting buckshot at farther distances like 50 and 60 yards, and we've demonstrated shooting birdshot at what would be considered home defense distances like 10 yards and less, usually a lot less. And although we've demonstrated that birdshot can be very effective at very short ranges, the question is, what if you were to shoot a large target with birdshot at longer ranges like 50 or even 100 yards? What kind of effect would we expect? Now remember, birdshot is made to shoot birds or other small game like rabbits and squirrels. And in this environment right here, I have killed jackrabbits with birdshot at distances of 50, 60, even 70 yards. But there's a big difference between shooting a jackrabbit and shooting a very large target. Now, in talking about what kind of effect we could get at those longer distances, there's two factors that go into it. One, how much penetration are we going to get with each individual pellet and how much damage are those pellets going to do? And two, how many pellets can we expect to hit the target because of pattern entropy at such long distances? Let's start with a demonstration of pattern entropy. I've got a Birdshot target set up, and I have my Mossberg Model 500 shotgun, which has a 20.5-inch improved cylinder bore barrel, and it's loaded with Winchester 12 gauge 2 3/4-inch 1 3/8 ounce of number 5 lead birdshot, and I'll shoot this from 7 yards. Now, of course, the large hole in the center is where the shot cup hit, but at 7 yards we see a relatively small pattern. Now I'll put up a new Birdshot target and shoot that from 25 yards. And now we see a much bigger pattern. Now I'll put up a new target and we'll try this again at 50 yards. I fired 2 shots, and we have impacts at the top of the target, at the bottom of the target, and beyond. The pattern is very big at this distance, but we also have 11 impacts in the 10 ring, so 2 shots, that's 5.5 per shot, and that's not bad. So I'll put up a new shoot and see center and repeat this firing from 100 yards. So we see that although at 50 yards we had a lot of pellets on paper, at 100 we have very few. And remember, this was 2 shots. Now this number could be increased if I'd used shot shells with a higher pellet count or a shotgun with a tighter choke. And for a more in-depth explanation of that, you can watch our presentation on Introduction to Shotguns. But the point remains that at 100 yards, very few pellets are going to hit the target. Now the question becomes, how much effect are you going to get from those pellets? Let's see if we can put that to the test. So to test penetration, we're going to use the meat target. For those who haven't seen it before, the meat target is leather couch skin, pork steak pectorals, pork ribs, a bag of oranges to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech police bullet stop. Also, I've changed ammunition. Now I have my Mossberg shotgun loaded with Remington Express long-range ammunition. This is 12 gauge 2 3/4-inch with 1 1/2 ounce of number 4 lead birdshot, which is fairly big as birdshot goes, and it has 4 dram equivalents of propellant. So let's see what kind of damage we can do when I shoot this meat target from 100 yards. At 100 yards, I fired 4 shots. I wanted to make sure enough pellets went downrange that we had a few hits, and we did have a few. However, I'm finding 0 penetration, just some dents on the front of the meat target. None of those number 4 birdshot pellets even went through our 4 layers of t-shirt, which is actually a polycotton blend polo shirt, but still, unless those pellets were repelled by the tackiness of the shirt, we're seeing no effectiveness at 100 yards. Let's shoot the same ammunition from 50 yards. So I fired 2 shots from 50 yards, several pellets hit the target, and what I discovered was that most of the pellets were stuck in the shirt on the front of the target. Some of them went through and hit the leather couch skin and bounced off. A couple of the pellets did penetrate our pork steak pectoral, but only because they hit at the bottom of the target where our leather couch skin didn't properly cover the pork steak pectoral. This ammunition was so ineffective that I thought it must be defective, and off camera I fired a different type of ammunition at the target from 50 yards, Birdshot with number 6 shot, and got essentially the same result. A lot of the pellets stuck in the t-shirt on the front of the target, some of them actually stuck in the leather couch skin. At 50 yards our Birdshot was terribly ineffective. So let's try one more type of birdshot. I'll go back 50 yards and I'll shoot Remington 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1 1/4 ounce of number 2 lead birdshot, which is significantly bigger. Let's see what kind of results we get from that. Well, I took our meat target apart, and the number 2 shot, which is quite a bit bigger than number 4 shot, at 50 yards, most of the pellets did go through the leather couch skin, and some of them were stuck in our pork steak pectoral, but none of them made it to the ribs, let alone through the ribs. So at 50 yards, we're seeing that our birdshot is anywhere from totally ineffective to almost totally ineffective. But I'll put together a new meat target, and there is one more thing I want to demonstrate. Now I have a new meat target set up, and now I've got the shotgun loaded with 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch number 6 birdshot. And although we've demonstrated that at distances of 50 yards birdshot is ineffective, at typical home defense distances like 7 yards or less, birdshot can be very effective. Let's take a look at this target. At 7 yards, this is what your pork steak pectoral looks like. The ribs on the front of the target are mangled, and yes, at least one of them is broken. And there's a lot of damage to our orange lung tissue. So at home defense distances, birdshot good. Anything beyond that, not so much. So as always, don't try this at home unless you call a professional, and thanks for watching the Birdshot at 50 and 100 yards video.